obviously, having been a PR consultant for all those years, my job was to promote other people. All right, I had to promote myself within the organisations that I work with to get promotions or to get good reviews or whatever. But I never had to promote myself as a business person or as a business. So
Right.
actually, in the last kind of at least about a year, I've had to put myself out as a personal brand, and that's been completely different because I've then got to be clear on my messages and what I stand for. And I'm used to helping other people do that, but not necessarily doing it for me. So that's been a real sort of eye opener. But equally, that's what I think keeps it fresh, because I'm always doing different things and learning new things. And I'm always challenging myself in some ways. Some are
Right.
easier than others. But yeah, when I get media coverage for a client, it's fantastic. But more recently, I've had some for myself, and that's felt amazing, because it's like, yeah, I can do it for myself as well, which, I should be able to do it for myself, but it is a different skill. So I think I can help business owners to do that, because I can show how I've done it myself. And I've done it myself as someone who naturally is kind of, I'll be behind my clients, I'll cheer them on all the way, but I'm not stood at the front, like, getting all the attention. And it's a
Right.
different feeling, actually.
Right. So it sounds like a lot of your ability to convey convey a level of comfort or trust has to do with you sharing your personal story.
Yes, yeah. And it's funny, I think that's something that only more recently has been something I've kind of started to do, because I very much would talk about my own expertise and experience. Like, when I work with clients, I'll say, look at their story, their experience and their expertise, and they're kind of the main sort of things that I'll look at with them to start building, what their sort of messages would be. But with me, I've definitely lent more onto the expertise and experience side to try and show my credibility and show I've got the experience. And PR is all about showing, not telling what you're good at, showing what you're good at. But actually, I've not really gone into my story massively yet, and I don't know whether that's an introverted thing. I'm not sure. Maybe it is partly, but that's something that I've kind of recognised, especially recently, that I need to share that more. And that actually there's a lot of people out there who feel like me, who feel strange about talking about themselves. But as I say, if you want to have your own business, you're going to have to do it. So I think people can identify with that. And because everyone's got an interesting story, I don't think, people maybe think, oh, well, I'm not interesting, but everybody's gone through different things. And as you say, learn different lessons. And so everyone can find something they could talk about that would inspire someone else or educate someone else, but it's just working through the story. And you can do it chronologically as a starting point, but then, like you say, pull out, well, that was really awful, but what did I learn? And you'll know those things very easily, actually, because it brings it all back when you do that.
Well, I love that idea of everyone has a story, and it actually came up in my last season. I had a conversation with someone, Andrea Sanchez, and her work is called Spark Story, and her whole work is around helping people to share their story.
Right.
And I loved one thing that she had shared was even the idea of journaling. She said journaling is a way of telling your story, because sometimes we think that I have to have this large audience to be telling a story. And your story is actually not dependent on your audience. Your story is still your story. And so I never looked at journaling as an activity in storytelling. And actually, for those of us who like to write and who process their thinking through writing, that can actually be a filtering process to get clarity, right? To kind of be like, okay, now I've kind of filtered through it, and here is like to your point, here's the lesson learned. And I think it's that connection to emotion. A story is what actually generates a level of emotion, which generates connection between us. And yes, expertise is important. Yes, years of experience and credentials, all of these things are important. So I actually don't downplay any of that. But without a story, all of this just becomes that whole, in business, we talk about features versus benefits. Like, that's all it is. It's just, these are all the features that I bring to you.
List.
But I don't know what the difference is. How does that differentiate me? the connection really is, who you want to work with, the people who connect with you. And how do you connect with somebody? You connect with them when you hear the story. And then you can say, oh
Yes.
yeah, this person's journey that resonates with me. Caroline's struggling with the same things I've struggled with. And let me hear how she's done it. And that's what generates a connection between us to bring
Yeah,
us together.
definitely. Yeah, and that's that aspect of building relationships, which is like the foundation of PR. It's about relationships and reputation. So, it is really important to, I think as well, you can't really fake your story. You have to be authentic and genuine. I think you could try and make up another story for yourself, but it would be very difficult to keep it up. So it's kind of like when people share their stories, I think that builds the trust factor. And they say, don't they, like the know, like, and trust factor? But it's true, because you feel like you know that little bit more about them. And like you say, you're looking for, oh, well, she'll understand how I feel because she's had it too. Or,
Yes.
it's very much that sort of personal connection, really. So
Yes.
that's how you, as I say, stand out from other people doing the same work as you. So it's really, like, I think it's a massive area of business. I think it's sort of growing all the time as sort of entrepreneurship grows and people starting their own businesses grows. I think that's something that they'll learn of, actually using their story to their own advantage, but in a genuine way, really.
For anybody who might be struggling to share their story, what might be one or two things that you would encourage in them or share with them to help them be able to kind of unleash that piece?
Yeah, I think it sounds quite simple, but I do say to do a couple of things. One is to bullet point out your story and just start chronologically, just bullet point what, all the different things that have happened in your life, and include, and so the highs and the lows and the things that got you to the point where you are now, particularly if that's, that's now your business kind of thing. So going through and bullet pointing those out, but not putting any pressure on yourself, I think, to like find the lesson straight away. Just get it out of your head and onto paper. And then once you've got it out of your head and onto paper, you can start to look for, well, what were the highs, what were the lows, what did I learn, and what parts especially mean that I do what I do now. What's your why, really? Why do you have the business that you have? So that's the story part. The other part is to go through and bullet point your expertise and your experience. So I always say it's not just qualifications, it can be life experience. But again, what are the things you could talk about as an expert that the average person couldn't? Because you, as I say, you don't have to be a doctor of whatever it is, you just have to know more than the average person. But you can then give people advice and opinion and sort of how-to articles. So once you've bullet pointed those things out, I always say stick it on your wall next to your desk or next to your laptop or whatever, because then you can see how much you've got to offer and how much you've got to share, how brilliant you are, and that you've got to this point. And then if you do see an opportunity to speak on a podcast or respond to an article or make something happen, you've just got that reminder all the time that you've got all this stuff to fall back on and use. And I think that's a really powerful exercise. So that's kind of where I always start, and just kind of get it out of your head and onto paper. And I think you'll feel just a lot more confident, and you should feel really proud of yourself, but also you'll feel like a bit of a weight's lifted because it's out there and it's by your desk. You're not going to always have to sort of scratch around in your head for those examples because you've got them out of your head. So that would be my kind of starting point. Yeah, and sometimes you start with somebody and, they tell you a little bit, but by the time they've told you the whole story, you've got loads to work with, and you're like, this is amazing, but they didn't think of that bit or that bit to tell you originally. So yeah, there's definitely sort of a bit of crafting, weaving the story, around the business, and that is fascinating. I mean, I am fascinated by people, and I don't know whether that's an introvert thing that, I have to say, when I talk to people, I'll very often turn the conversation back onto them rather than go, particularly when I'm talking about my work. Although that obviously hasn't been a problem today, but normally if I speak to about the business, I'll be asking them all about theirs more than I will be telling them about mine. And I think that's probably just part of that's just what I've always done. But I don't know whether that's a bit of an introverted thing, to just kind of put the attention off me and onto them. But equally, it's something that I guess I've always had to do as part of my job, so it's kind of second nature, really.
It's interesting because I feel that that is an introverted quality, the idea to be more like asking, because again, it's this inquisitive nature of like putting, and it might be a little bit of deflecting of not too much on me, let me put a little bit more on you. And I feel that we do have a desire to go deeper in conversation and relationships with people. And
Yeah.
so I wonder if that quality in you actually drew you to the work that you do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it probably did, because, as I say, the way all businesses, as much as it's business and it's kind of factual and serious, there's people behind every business, and so it's fascinating, really. Like, as whatever size of business, just finding more about the story. But I love the owner managed business, like the solopreneur. I mean, my sort of clients, they've turned their passion into a business, so like they're kind of woven through every aspect of that business. And yeah, I do find it fascinating. So I think that's definitely been something that's helped me in my career, and particularly in the way I've sort of set up Cheerleader PR. It's like I'm finally stepping into that and kind of saying that's part of what I can do, that actually, because I am the way I am, might be a bit introverted, but I can see the good in everyone. I know they've all got a good story, and I love being able to help them to get it out into the world, really, because
Yes.
it's that thing, if you don't tell anyone how great you are, no one's going to know. So I want to help them to do that in a positive way, really.